Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hakuouki Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. We are on Okita Souji's route, and we are going for his first good ending, though I'm not sure if it's going to be in this episode or not. We already did his first bad ending, and our dear twin brother Kaoru forced us to drink some of the water of life, which, really shouldn't turn us into a fairy because we're already a full-blooded demon, so... well, let's see what it does to us. You can just sit back, relax, and let me read you a story. I just thought it would be so lonely if Okita was the only fury. His grin was twisted and cruel. Now you're both furies. You really should thank me, you know. You son of a bitch. This is your fault, Okita, not mine. You could have killed me, but you felt bad doing the deed in front of my sister. The more you care for one another, the tighter the noose gets. Oh, this is so much fun. How dare you! I could feel pain beginning to course through my body, and my breath was starting to come in gasps. It was almost as if a switch in Kaoru had been flipped. When he looked down at me, his cruel grin was gone. In its place was a sneer of utter disgust and loathing. I hate you. I wonder what happens to demons who drink the water of life. Will you go mad? Well, I'm sure looking forward to my next visit. I'll say that much. And with that, he disappeared into the forest, laughing. So I guess even he doesn't know what happens. Okita stood silent and rigid as he watched Kaoru leave. I had no doubt that he wanted more than anything to chase after my brother, but he didn't. He stayed. As I watched, his body shifted and he was a normal human again. I'm sorry. Kaoru's right. I hesitated, and you paid the price. No. I should have just killed him when I had the chance. Yeah, you should have. Okita scowled and slammed his sword back into its scabbard. Well, I thought I could protect you, but I let my guard down. I screwed up. Okita. He finally met my eyes with a look of concern. Are you alright? I nodded. I'm fine. Nothing really seems to have happened yet. There was more to come, I was sure of that, and it frightened me, but I didn't want to add to Okita's worries. We still need to join up with the rest of the Shinsengumi, right? I was sure Okita would cheer up once he saw Kondo again, but he thought a moment before answering. The battle might be over already. I hadn't realized until he mentioned it, but the gunfire we'd heard as we approached had been silent for some time. If it's over, then did the Shinsengumi lose? If they had, they would have retreated from their camp, and it would be next to impossible for us to find them. After a few more moments of thought, Okita made up his mind. We'll head back to Edo. The Battle of Koshu Katsunuma ended with another victory by the Imperial Army. Okita and I managed to make our way back to Edo, but it took longer than we'd hoped. My condition was deteriorating. The water of life was slowly transforming me into a fury, and I was beginning to feel the effects. It became painful for me to be awake during the day, and even the slightest scent of blood set my nerves on edge. Still, I didn't feel a craving for blood. That was something. It was clear that my condition was slowing us down, but Okita never complained. I appreciated his concern, but I still felt guilty. I knew he wanted to join Kondo as soon as he could, and I was holding him back. Go on without me! Even so, he never abandoned me. In time, we made it to Edo together. He might not have looked it, but he was a kind man. We're back! As soon as we stepped into the house, I sank to the floor, all my energy spent. Good job, Chizuru. He grinned and gave me a short pat on the head. Upon reaching Edo, we found it under the control of several domains who'd allied with the Imperial Army. It doesn't sound like a very safe place for us to be. There were soldiers everywhere, and just making it back to the house unnoticed had been difficult. We'll go find Matsumoto tomorrow, and figure out what's going on in Edo, alright? Our trek had left us out of touch with the goings-on in the rest of the world. We'd hoped Dr. Matsumoto would be able to tell us where the rest of the Shinsengumi had gone. You don't look so hot. I think you'd better hit the sack early tonight. Finally, we can sleep on a real bed. I grinned. We were wanted by the Imperial Army now. We hadn't been able to sleep in real bed since we left Edo the first time, for fear of being spotted and captured. Sure, you can sleep all by yourself, Chizuru. You won't get scared or anything. Is that a hint? You really want to sleep by me that badly? I'm not a kid. I can sleep by myself just fine, thank you. He grinned. I do worry about you, though. Do you really? I was still working out just how to respond to that when... Ugh. Kinda surprised Yamazaki hadn't caught up with us. He moaned, and his face twisted in pain. Okita wrapped his hand around his stomach and doubled over, groaning. Is it the bloodlust? Then I had to... Okay, so for the first good ending, we have to make him endure it? My poor baby. I ran to his side. Okita! I caught him just as he was about to collapse. His breath was labored, and what little of it he had was wasted on agonized moans. What was I supposed to do? His screams had begun to sound almost bestial. Surely he would feel better if he drank some of my blood, but... No, I won't go mad. I can't go mad. When I offered it, he refused. Okita! I clung to him in desperation. There was nothing else I could do. What little reason the pain had left him with was committed entirely to fighting back the madness. His entire body shook with the strain of resistance. The fury blood within him demanded violence, gore-drenched and monstrous, but he refused. I began to cry, and continued for hours until I had no tears left. We stayed that way until dawn came. When the bloodlust subsided at last, he slumped to the floor, utterly spent, and was asleep in seconds. How long, I found myself wondering, could he tolerate such pain? The next night, we got in touch with Dr. Matsumoto. As soon as he realized we returned to Edo, he rushed to the house, bringing along 2 other visitors we'd never expected to see. Chizuru, I'm ever so glad to see you're safe. Sen, lovely to see you. Sen? She was nearly beside herself with joy and relief at my safety, but I still didn't understand why they were here. Why are you with Dr. Matsumoto? My lady was worried for you. Even after I'd refused Sen's offer twice and sent her away, she'd never stopped being concerned for me. Ever since the Shinsengumi left Kyoto, we didn't know where you'd gone. We found the Shinsengumi who were staying in Edo, but you weren't among them. After a little more searching, she'd explained, they found Dr. Matsumoto and confided in him, hoping that he might have some idea of where I'd gone to. That happened only a few days earlier. I really am so happy to see you're all right. Not exactly all right. I could see tears in her eyes as she spoke, and I was touched. I'm sorry I made you worry, but I had Okita to protect me. She blinked and stared at me for a moment, then realization dawned on her face and she smiled. Well, I'm relieved that you're doing so well. I would dearly love to hear more about you, but perhaps it would be best if we discuss some other, rather more pressing issues first. All right. I nodded. I learned something about Kodo. She glanced over at Kimigiku expectantly. The other woman nodded and began to speak. The Tokugawa forced Kodo to conduct experiments on the Shinsengumi using the Water of Life. She went on to explain that Kodo was from a lesser branch of the Yukimura family. He'd escaped the shogunate's wrath when they killed the rest of the family, so he'd had little choice when they told him to work on the Water of Life. The Water of Life was imported from the West. It's a poison that destroys the spirit and drives one mad, but he somehow managed to make it less toxic. Unfortunately, we don't know how he managed to do that. Still, if he was able to mitigate its effects, don't you think it possible, if not likely, that he could remove them completely? What? By that, does she mean it might be possible to turn a fury back into a human? Could such a thing even be possible?
Well, that sounds crazy. Still, if I was anyone else, I'd think Fury sounded crazy too. So, you don't have any idea how he did it, huh?
No, I don't. But I imagine he would. That's true, but he's missing. Sen smiled brightly.
Not anymore, huh?
Not anymore. We know where he is. You do? Was that what she meant when she said she learned something about him? According to Sen, my father was staying on land that had belonged to the main branch of the Yukimoto family. That meant... where I was born? Sen nodded. I know the general location. I can give you a map later, but the Yukimoto house is to the northeast. As far as we can tell, Kodo is continuing his research on the Furies. He's gone back to my hometown to do his research? Curing a Fury isn't easy, but perhaps Kodo will be able to do it. He did know more about Furies than anyone else. Perhaps with his help we could save Okita.
What do you want to do, Chizuru?
Well, My voice drifted off into silence. I wanted very much to see my father, but I didn't want to leave Okita. In the silence I'd left, Dr. Matsumoto cleared his throat.
Before you decide, will you take a moment to listen to what I have to say as well?
Oh, of course. I was happy for any interruption that would distract me from answering Okita's question, but the news Dr. Matsumoto had for us was more than what I had bargained for.
Kondo has surrendered to the Imperial Army.
What?
His face went pale with shock, then flushed red with fury.
Why would Kondo do that? What the hell is Hijikata doing out there?
Please, Okita, calm down.
Although he covered it well, I could see that the doctor had been surprised by Okita's reaction. Okita, enraged, was not a thing many people saw.
No, I won't. I can't.
He shook his head sharply. Okita! Not many things could pierce Okita's emotional armor, but danger to Kondo was one of them.
I don't know the details, but there's no doubt that Kondo surrendered. My source is inside the shogunate, and he has no reason to lie to me.
It was hard to believe that Kondo would surrender so easily. Or perhaps we simply didn't want to believe it.
Hijikata is in command of the Shinsengumi now, and they've been fighting their way north.
But how could the Shinsengumi still exist if their chief had surrendered?
Hijikata betrayed Kondo. What else could it be?
His voice was tight between clenched teeth. We don't know that yet. Sen's good-hearted attempt to calm him had unfortunately the opposite effect.
Well, and you explain why the chief was the only one who surrendered. Hijikata gave them Kondo. That bastard could have figured a way out of there, but he didn't. What more proof do you need?
Okita's voice was growing louder as his control began to slip away. Sen frowned. If I didn't do something, they were going to start fighting. I need to calm Okita down. Getting mad now wasn't going to help Kondo. I kept my voice as steady and stern as I could manage.
But...
No buts, young man. You listen to your woman. His eyes widened in surprise, but he fell silent. Our small audience stayed quiet as well, clearly interested to see where the conversation would go. Doubtless, they were as surprised as Okita to hear me talk to him like that. Not so used to me being assertive, huh? We can argue all we want, but none of us really know what happened to Kondo and the Shinsengumi. I didn't want to do anything that might hurt his feelings, but it was all too likely that he would say something in his anger that he would regret later. That's why... I fixed him with an admonishing glare. This is not the time for bickering. He was silent for several moments, apparently taking in what I'd said. Eventually, he lowered his face sheepishly and looked away.
Thanks, and sorry.
The rage of only minutes ago was gone, replaced by a chagrined calm. I'm sorry too. I was out of line. He smiled sideways at me, then turned to face Dr. Matsumoto.
Do you know where Kondo is?
Are we gonna rescue him?
Why do you want to know?
His brows were furrowed. He suspected he already knew.
Oh, I'm going to save him.
Okita's tone was deadly serious. Dr. Matsumoto's lips thinned. Okita had said exactly what he'd expected him to.
You can't. It's impossible.
Well, I won't know till I try, will I?
The doctor simply shook his head.
You don't understand. This isn't something you can handle alone. Kondo is the chief of the Shinsengumi. You aren't the only person who'd want to save him. Therefore, wherever he is, he's well guarded. And before you run off half-cocked, keep in mind that they'll be expecting Furies. Their men will probably be armed with silver bullets.
He was right, and Okita and I knew it, but the truth cut like a knife.
Even if Hijikata dispatched the entire Shinsengumi, they couldn't rescue Kondo from the Imperial Army.
Hold on, what the hell am I supposed to do?
I was going to appeal to the shogunate to spare his life.
That will be difficult. Dr. Matsumoto nodded in agreement, his face grim.
If the shogunate tries to save Kondo, that act could anger the imperial army unnecessarily.
The shogunate hopes to spare Edo from the ravages of war. They'll abandon Kondo to do that, I have no doubt.
No! Kondo had spent his blood, sweat, and tears in the service of the shogunate, and now they would simply abandon him to his fate? Yep, that's politics for ya. And where the hell is Yamazaki? It seemed too cruel, too heartless. I felt Kondo's loss, of course, but that was nothing compared to the pain Okita was in. Okita, what do you want to do? He thought for a moment.
I want to go see Hijikata. I need to talk to him. After that, I don't know.
Alright. I didn't press for more. Okita. My eyes met his. I'm going with you. He looked surprised, then concerned.
No, you should go find your father.
My choice was to stay with Okita. Yes, I wanted to know more about the Furies, and I wanted to see my father again, but I couldn't leave Okita alone. Not now. Not ever.
Fine.
He sighed and shrugged, not willing to test my determination. It's not worth it. I'm quite stubborn, you know. If Hijikata had betrayed Kondo, then I had no doubt Okita would kill him without hesitation. You know, Hijikata would never betray Kondo. When and if that time came, I wanted to be there for them. So you've decided? You'll be going with Okita? Yeah. My voice was steady and sure. The smile Sen gave me was bright and warm. Then, I'm happy for you. Best of luck, Chizuru. Thank you. It was nice of her to wish me luck, but I couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed.
Stay safe.
She bowed to me as she spoke. Thank you very much. Sen and Kimikiku had come all the way to Edo just to see that I was all right. I couldn't thank them enough. Okita gave Dr. Matsumoto a short, polite bow.
Thank you for taking care of me.
If you're ever in Edo again, come and visit me, alright?
At that moment, I found myself wondering if I would ever see any of these people again. I don't know. We left during the night. The Imperial Army was out in force, searching for rebels and the like, so we were forced to run most of the way, through dark streets and back alleys. Suddenly, Okita stopped.
Chizuru, get behind me.
Right. I ducked behind him just as I heard the voice. Hey, I haven't seen you in that outfit before. Doesn't quite rhyme.
I didn't think you were in Edo.
Standing in front of us was Chikage Kazuma, a tight crooked smile on his face.
What are you doing here? I had heard the Shinsengumi were already moving north.
Okita shrugged.
I don't really think why we're here, or what we're up to is really any of your business.
Amagiri sighed.
True. In any event, it seems fortune has been kind to us.
As he spoke, Kazuma slid his sword from its scabbard.
We can take the girl and dispose of this irritating fake.
Okita's smile was cold.
Man, I don't want to be rude, but you aren't taking her anywhere. And if you think you're going to dispose of me, then you got another thing coming, pal.
Amagiri stepped back, showing no sign of attacking. Ah, so he's being fair. I didn't want to be a burden to Okita. There had to be something I could do. Wait, can I take care of Amagiri while Okita fights Kazuma?
Don't.
I felt more than heard Amagiri's low rumble.
You're no match for these men. If you put yourself between them, you will die.
He was probably right. Well, he's definitely right. I bit my lip and let my hand fall from my sword. Okita's battle had already begun. Both men were immensely skilled, but it was clear even to me that Okita would never be able to stand his ground were he not a fury. Again and again, they leapt at one another, the clang of metal ringing through the night.
You've gotten better.
Honestly, I don't care what you think.
They held nothing back, even as they continued their banter. I was beginning to think they were evenly matched when... Ah! Though neither of their swords had connected, blood splattered to the ground.
A fake and a fool.
Kazuma's smile was cold and arrogant.
Your disease makes you little more than an invalid. Did you really think you could defeat a true demon in this state?
What? Okita drew his hand roughly across his mouth. It came away stained with blood. Okita? I was afraid to ask. You still have tuberculosis? Okita said nothing. Kazuma's laughter cut at my heart like a flurry of knives.
The water of life gives physical strength, but it can only restore fresh wounds. It cannot cure disease.
Then how did he hide it all this time? No! With each word, my chest squeezed tighter and tighter.
A fake has no right to live. If you insist on pretending to be a samurai, then accept your death and die like one.
Kazuma tightened his grip on his sword. I leapt in front of Okita and spread my arms as wide as I could.
What is this?
What's it look like? I'm also a fury. I fixed him with a glare and did my best to hide the trembling of my legs. If Okita doesn't have the right to live, then neither do I.
What?
Kazuma's eyes flew open in shock. You heard me.
You drank the water of life?
Not by choice. My voice tinged with desperation. I rapidly recounted how I'd become a fury. I told him how I discovered my long-lost brother, how he had forced the water of life down my throat, and how I had begun to experience the symptoms that signified a fury.
I have heard of the Nagumo family, but I never thought they would turn the water of life.
Amagiri seemed stunned.
He has no pride.
There was disgust in his voice.
Your body has been corrupted. You cannot give birth to a demon.
Ah, then you lose all interest in me because of that? Something was happening to him. Okita? As I watched, I saw the light of reason fade from his eyes. He'd drawn the power of his fury blood extensively during the battle, and now the madness had taken hold of him.
It was only a matter of time.
Well, you sure didn't help matters. Kazuma turned his cold eyes from Okita to me.
You are the child of a demon, so I will show you mercy.
He took a step toward me. Ugh! His steel gaze pinned me to the spot. Try as I might, I couldn't bring my body to move. He took another step. Okita lifted his sword and screamed, throwing himself toward Kazuma. Amagiri appeared between them, batting aside Okita's blow. Okita! He didn't respond or even show any sign that he'd heard me, and his sword struck out again and again.
No.
His attacks were fierce and utterly without fear. Step by step, he forced Amagiri back. Kazuma looked over at them, and his face twisted with a flash of emotion I couldn't place. Surprise? Then, with one last step, he was upon me.
Before you go mad and lose what honor you have, I grant you a respectable death, as a pure-blood demon.
Oh, thank you so much. He raised his sword. I leapt back as quickly as I could, but... Ugh. Amagiri had been right. I was no match for Kazuma. His sword pierced my heart, as surely as if I had been standing still. The world went black. What? That was good ending 1? I think maybe this walkthrough was not quite labeled right. I think they changed some things and didn't update certain parts of it. Well, whether that was considered good ending or bad ending, we're going after whatever the next ending is considered. Okay, so on the way for ending number 3 here, I have to this time give him medicine. I took out the medicine. Okita, here! He nodded and took it. For several breathless moments we sat, waiting for the medicine to take effect. It would work, I was sure of it, but it was taking so long.
I'll get better soon.
He was doing his best to put on a brave face, but even Okita was no match for the pain. His face was strained and pale, and his arms shook. Just watching him made my heart ache with sympathy. After what seemed like an eternity, his hair and eyes changed back to their normal color, and his breathing grew more even.
It's alright, I'm fine. Looks like that medicine did the trick.
He flashed me a smile. Good. I couldn't think of anything more insightful. He'd managed to overcome the bloodlust this time, but when it came again, would the medicine alone be enough to suppress it? I would think it should last for a while. Would it really stop working that quickly? That drop of worry poisoned the flood of my relief. The next night, we got in touch with Dr. Matsumoto. And can we skip? Yep. And once again we have to calm Okita down. And here we have new material. This time we're not dying in this fight. Kazuma sighed and returned his sword to its scabbard as his horns disappeared.
Go.
What?
You may be a fury now, but you have the blood of a demon. If this concerns your family, you must settle it yourself.
Okita slowly slid his sword back into its sheath as well.
Well then, you're going to leave her alone for now.
She no longer has any value to me.
Harsh, blunt words to be sure, but to hear them from Kazuma's mouth was a blessing.
The war the humans have begun will soon end. After the Imperial Army takes Edo, they mean to head north to destroy what remains of the old shogunate's army. The domains of the northeast are still resisting, but there can be no doubt as to the final outcome. We have fulfilled our obligations to the Satsuma domain. Human affairs are no longer any concern of ours.
That was what passed for a goodbye, apparently, as he turned on his heel and walked off.
Until such a time as demons are needed once again, we will disappear.
Amagiri inclined his head, and something not quite a bow turned and was gone. Okita looked at me and smiled.
Well, that's good news, right, Chizuru? One problem taken care of.
He was right, but I couldn't bring myself to feel particularly cheerful about it. Okita? I wanted to ask him about his tuberculosis, but...
Come on, we need to move. If the Imperial Army finds us, we're going to be in trouble.
Huh? Oh! He grabbed my hand and began to run. I didn't want to believe that he was still sick. Perhaps it had been some sort of mistake. All I could do was hope. Chapter 6. We've made it to Chapter 6. We left Edo on the trail of the Shinsengumi. They joined forces with the Denshu Company and were headed for Nikko. Denshu Company was an elite unit made up of men from the shogunate army who'd been trained in Western weapons and warfare. Okita and I slept in the deep forest during the day and only traveled at night after the sun had set. On one particular day, we found ourselves resting some distance from the main road.
They went that way.
A whistle echoed through the forest. The Imperial Army had found us, and the sun was still a long time from setting. So long as it was out, Okita and I couldn't move as quickly or smoothly as we would have liked.
I don't think we can lose them. We're going to have to fight.
He looked over at me and grinned, and pulled his sword from its scabbard.
Why don't you go hide somewhere? I can take care of this.
A year ago, I would have simply nodded and gone to hide. No, I'm going to fight too. I drew my kodachi as I spoke, and I saw Okita's eyes widen. This time, it was my turn to smile.
A crooked grin just like his?
They aren't demons. I think I should be able to help. Even during the day I was still a demon. I didn't want to make him suffer alone. Another whistle sounded, this one much closer.
I found them! Over here!
Within moments, we were surrounded.
Let's go, Chizuru.
Right. Fighting in the sunlight was hard. I felt dizzy, and my body was sluggish and unresponsive, but I told myself that Okita was suffering just like I was and pushed on. Oh, he looks crazy right now.
Huh, you guys can't hold a candle to me.
One by one, the Imperial soldiers fell beneath his blade.
Stand your ground, men! Fire!
At his command, gunshots echoed through the forest. I felt several bullets whistle past me, but only one hit my leg. Gah! Blood splattered out from the wound, staining the ground beneath me. I barely even realized what happened when the pain hit me. Ugh! Even as I screamed, my wound was closing. I would be fine. I couldn't let Okita worry about me. With sword in hand, I leapt forward
Yeah.
and slashed my blade across his arm. With a cry, he dropped his gun. One less soldier.
You.
Perhaps killing someone had left me stunned, but I didn't even notice the second man until he was only feet away, his gun aimed squarely at my chest.
Uh-oh.
Suddenly, Okita was there, his sword flashing in the sunlight, and the bullet that had been meant for me flew off harmlessly into the forest. The man collapsed without a sound.
Could you not run in front like that? I'll worry less if you stay behind me, alright?
Right. His words were curt, but I could hear the kindness behind them.
If I give you orders, can you follow them?
His eyes met mine.
I want you to back me up. You don't have to kill anyone.
Even as bullets tore through the air, his first thought was to protect me. Okita was an amazing warrior, and he was easily the superior of any of the soldiers we were fighting, but he was still far weaker than he would be at night. I want to... Under the sun's light, he would never be at his best. I wanted to help make up for that.
Just aim for their weapons. Your sword won't cut as well if it's covered in blood and guts.
Alright. In the middle of a fight, he had understood what I wanted and considered my feelings. I smiled and felt a little stronger. The bullets didn't let up, but we fought side by side and pushed ahead. We both took several hits, but our wounds healed almost instantly.
You. Are you Furies? From the Shinsengumi?
I could see disgust in his eyes. But from what he'd said, they knew of the existence of the Furies.
You heard of us? I'm surprised. Guess ordering our men to keep their mouths shut wasn't enough.
His tone was casual, but I could see his jaw tighten as he spoke. Okay, and there we're going to end the video. I know it's like in the middle of a fight, but who knows how long this could go on, so I'm going to have to end the video there and pick up in the next episode. So hope to see you there or on some of my other videos, and I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye-bye, everybody.